Hi guys, my name's Jack Salzke from FadedFocus Photography at FadedFocus.com, coming to you today from F-Stop Lounge at fstoplounge.com. Today I'm going to be making a video about frequency separation. Now I made a video about frequency separation quite a while ago. Since then I've learnt quite a bit about the subject and I've completely changed how I set up and how I use frequency separation, so I thought it would be a good idea to make a new video about it and show you what I do now. There will be a link to the original video in the description if you want to see what I've changed and what I potentially got wrong, but this video will cover everything that video covered plus more, and hopefully won't make as many errors. So today I'm going to be editing this photo. This photo isn't mine. I got it off Model Mayhem. A link to where I got it from will be in the description, and the photographer's name will pop up on the screen because I can't pronounce it. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to show you how I set up my frequency separation layers, and then I'm going to explain what they are and what they do and how you can manipulate them to edit your image. So if what I'm doing at the start doesn't completely make sense, it's okay. I will explain what I have done in just a little bit. So to get started, what you need to do is you need to make a duplicate of whatever you've got here. This is probably what you'll see if you are just working with a normal layer. That'll probably be a background. What you need to do is you just need to duplicate it by hitting Command J, or you can drag it down to this new layer icon here. However, since I am using Smart Objects, it's not quite as easy for me. If I duplicate it, it will be a smart object, and I don't want it to be a smart object. So what I do is I make a new layer, and then I hit Command Option Shift E, and that just makes a copy of whatever's underneath that layer and puts it into that blank layer. Also, if you've already manipulated your image in Photoshop, say you've got curves or whatever above your background, you can do the same thing. Go to the topmost visible layer, hit Command Option Shift E, Control Alt Shift E on a PC, and it'll make a duplicate of anything that's under where you are in the layer stack. And there you go. Now from here we need to make a duplicate again of this layer, so I'm just going to hit Command J, Control J on a PC, and now we've got layer 1 and layer 1 copy. I'm going to rename layer 1 to color. I'm going to rename layer 1 copy to texture, and then I'm going to make sure texture is hidden. I'm just going to work on the color layer first. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and I'm going to select a blur that gets rid of all the texture, okay, but maintains structure. So in this case, because it's a full length image, it's going to be a lower value, and you'll have to play around with this a little bit. But in this case, it's probably about 4.5 pixels. You can see here, you can still make out that it's a woman, and there's eyes, and there's nose, and whatever, but there's no texture in the skin. Just to be safe, we might crank that up to about 5 pixels. I'm going to hit OK. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this layer again and call it Color Edit. So now what you should have is two layers that are blurry, and they should both be visible. Okay, and they should be exactly the same. Now what you want to do is put a white layer mask on that layer. I'll explain what that does in a little bit. Okay, so now your color layer's set up. Now we want to activate the texture layer, the sharp layer, and this is the layer that's going to contain all the texture. So what we do here is first we need to check how many bits we're working in. You can check that by looking either here or go to Image Mode and 8 bits per channel, 16 bits per channel, or 32 bits per channel. We want to be in either 8 bits or 16 bits. The settings vary slightly on both of these, so I'm going to show you what the settings need to be if you're on 8 bits and what they need to be if you're on 16 bits. So what we need to do, make sure the texture layer is active, and we're on 8 bits at the moment, so we're going to go to Image, Apply Image, we're going to go down to Layer, Color, okay, and then we need to make sure this is set to Subtract on the blending mode, we need a scale of 2 and an offset of 128. Okay, and that should give you what looks like a high pass layer where it's just a grayscale image, and you can see it has a heap of texture in it, especially if I zoom in. You can see we've got all the texture from this image. Okay, make sure also that invert is not checked and these two aren't checked. If you need to, you can pause the video and just copy these settings for yourself. Okay, I'm going to cancel that. If you were doing it normally, you would accept that, but let's say you've got a 16-bit image. I'll just show you what the different settings will have to be if you've got a 16-bit image. So you still go to Image, Apply Image, Color. You need to make sure it's inverted. Set this to Add, and then have the scale at 2 and the offset at 0. We'll give you the exact same thing, but the settings are a little bit different. So let's just go ahead and click OK. It doesn't really matter that much for this, whether you're in 16 bits or 8 bits. And once you've done that, you can even change between the two and it won't matter at all. It'll stay the same. It's not going to mess up your image if you switch between the two. Okay, so now that we've got this texture layer, what we need to do is we need to duplicate it as well. And we're going to call this Texture Edit. And again, we're going to put a white layer mask on that layer. We're going to go back down to Texture and set the blending mode to Linear Light. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to hold down Alt on a PC, Option on a Mac, and go between the texture and the texture edit layer until you get this icon here, and then just click. And what that'll do is it means this layer is going to technically have the linear light mode, but we can work on it as a normal layer. And then this way, what this does is it means if you mess up on this layer, you can mask it out and it'll just reveal the layer underneath. These layers aren't necessarily necessary, but they make it so that you can go back, which is always convenient. Then the final thing I'm going to do is just going to put it in a group and call it Frequency Sep. Okay, now that's set up now. So basically what we've done is we've separated out color on the blurred layer and texture on the texture layer, so we can work on them individually. Now this has a couple of really good applications. Okay, the first one is if we work on the color layer. Okay, now what you can do is you can work on this with everything visible or just the layer visible. If you work with just the layer visible, I find it a little bit easier to see. So what we're going to deal with first is her legs. See how they're all a little bit different colored? It might have been cold. Often legs are like this, and it's something that's really hard to get rid of using other techniques. So what we're going to do is we're going to work solely on the color edit layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the lasso tool, and you can set the feather here if you know around about where your image is. I'm going to do that, but I'll also show you another way you can change the feather. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and get rid of the difference in color in her legs. So I'm just going to roughly select this area here, like that. And then to see what the blur is doing, you can hit Q, and that'll go into quick mask mode, and you can see it's got a blurred edge there. The other thing you can do is you can set your feather to 0, go into this mode, open up Gaussian blur, and change how much it's blurred from there. I'm happy with the 5 pixel blur that I've put on that, so I'm going to get out of quick mask mode, and now what we can do is we can blur this. So I'm going to go up to Filter, Blur, Gaussian blur, and you can go up and just see what it's doing there. Obviously that's way too much. What I like to do is I go to about 4.5 or so on this image, hit OK, and then you can use Command F, Control F on a PC to just increase that blur, and you can just reselect and just blur it out gradually. And you can make really even gradations with this, and it just makes getting rid of all that marbling on her legs quite a lot easier. So any changes you make here will be shown. Anything you don't touch won't be shown. And we'll just go through this really, really quick. Now you can spend a lot more time on this if you want to, but honestly there's really not that much need to. This is just affecting color and not texture. Although if you do make the blur on the original color layer not strong enough, you can end up affecting texture a little bit whilst doing this. Okay, so what you can see there is we've got pretty good. There are still some marks across here that I want to get rid of. So I'm going to show you a different technique to smooth out the colors. I'm going to get my brush tool by hitting B, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Shift B, right, until we get this up the top here. Now this is for painting or mixing or something. What you want to do is copy these settings here. So you want to have this one unchecked, this one checked, custom, wet, 20, 20, 20, 30. Okay, now what this is going to do is it's going to allow me to basically smudge. So if you're familiar with older versions of Photoshop, there was a smudge tool, I think there still is, where you can just drag color. This one is the same thing, except you've got a lot more control with the settings. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag down and just blend in anywhere that I don't like. Make sure you drag from somewhere you like to somewhere you don't like. You don't want to go the other way because that won't work for you as well. And you make sure you don't get rid of anything like this. This is the shadow on her leg to define her muscles. And you can just go over the image quite quickly. Whoops. And just get rid of stuff really, really quick. Okay, almost done. You can see how quick that was, and what you can see is this is the difference we've made. This is after we've done all the smoothing. This is before. So before and after, that's just the color. Okay, if we make everything else active, so this is the original. Okay, and what we've done is we've smoothed out the color in her legs, so they're no longer marbling. She no longer looks cold. Now obviously we've still got all the texture in there, and we'll need to fix some things up there in a minute, but it's quite a big improvement really, really quickly. If I zoom out, you can see huge improvements straight away. Now this can be used anywhere, including on the arms, and we'll take care of quite a lot of things. Now I'm working on the layer I'm working on all the layers at the moment, so I can see everything. As you can see, it's not quite as clear what I'm doing, but it is still doing quite a lot. You can see if I turn that on and off, it just cuts back. Now this technique can be used on the face quite effectively as well. This shadow is a little bit hard for my liking, so I can just smooth it out a little bit, smooth it out. And what I'm doing is I'm back on the lasso tool with 5 pixel feather, and I'm just going Command F to apply that Gaussian blur that I set up earlier. And this is quite quick. You don't need to spend too much time on this to get good results. You just want to make sure everything's nice and smooth, and you just want to make sure that you don't overdo it, because this can be really overdone and it can make it look really flat. Now this here I want to get rid of, and I'm going to have to do that in both layers, but I can go to my color layer, color edit, and I can use the healing brush tool, and I can use it normally, and because there is no texture, it works quite well. And see how you've got that line around the edge there? We can go back to our lasso tool and just get rid of it. Okay, so really simple to use, nothing complicated about it. Just get rid of all the little highlights and stuff we don't want, and that's pretty good. And you can see already we've gone from that to that, just evened it out a little bit, and that's pretty much how we work on the color edit layer. obviously you can play with that a little bit as well. You can start to shape the face, especially if you use that brush technique that I showed you. So we want to push some lightness up under the eyes. We can do that quite easily, and that's a really good technique as well. And we can start to extend this shadow out, give her a little bit more of a cheekbone, make her eyebrows, or what's that called? The upper eyelid part. I don't know what it's called. A little bit smoother, and we can start to shape her face a little bit using that. Okay, once you're happy with that, and you can see we've made quite a dramatic difference. We might have darkened off this part a little bit, lightened it up a little bit too much. So what we can do there is we can use our mask. If we get a brush, make it back to the normal brush mode. So instead of being on the mixer brush mode, go to the normal brush mode, get a black brush, and we can paint in with a 40% opacity and just bring back that color there. And make sure we didn't touch the eyebrows. And I think that's good. So you can see there, it was still taking a little bit much, and that's fine. Now we've already made quite a dramatic improvement to this image. You can see we've reshaped the face a little bit there. Now we're going to go and work with the texture. Now when you're working with the texture, you can work on just the texture layer. However, it can be a little bit hard to see. If you use a couple of adjustment layers and stuff, you'll be able to see that a little bit more clearly. However, I like to just work on it normally, everything visible. So make sure you're on healing brush or clone stamp tool. They'll both work quite well. And make sure you're on current layer only. If you hit all layers and you try and do something, it'll do that, and you'll know something's wrong. Just make sure you're on current layer only. So you can just use a normal healing brush. I've got a video on my channel that shows you how to use the healing brush. So I will link to that in this video. If you click on her face right about now, it'll take you to that video if you're not sure how to use the healing brush. And we can also use the clone stamp tool. Because there isn't any color in this, we don't have to worry quite so much. Make sure you're using it at 100% opacity. And we can just take out some of those. Go back to the healing brush. Okay, and it's really quick to do. Obviously this is a lot quicker with a tablet, which I am currently using. But you can obviously still do this with a mouse. I know a lot of people that use the mouse and even prefer to use a mouse sometimes. So that's just how you do that. Make the skin nice and smooth. And up here, we go up here, get rid of that, take care of these little lines that you probably can't even see in the video. And pretty quickly, we can get rid of quite a lot. Because there is no color, these tools work exceptionally well and quite a lot better than they do when there is color. And you can see how quick and easy this is. You really shouldn't have any problems with it whatsoever. Nothing really on the dress we need to figure out, but because I was so fast before with the color, we need to make sure that we get rid of the freckles as well. If you want the freckles in, you'll need to be a little bit more careful on the color layer and make sure you avoid those, because if you don't, you'll have weird colors on them and they'll look a little bit grey and washed out, sort of like these ones do here. So I'm just going to get rid of them for the sake of this video. If I spent a little bit more time or even masked them out, it wouldn't be an issue whatsoever. And now you can see here we've got these lines from obviously clothes that she was wearing prior to the shoot that were too tight. You can just get rid of those really quickly and simply. So you can see why frequency separation is such a good method, because it separates out color from texture and you can work on them individually, which makes getting rid of marbling, especially on legs, quite easy to get rid of, whereas with other techniques it would be quite a lot more difficult to deal with. Now what we can do here is we can use get rid of them completely. And let's say you wanted them to look a little bit more natural. You can do is go into the mask again, get a black brush, say 30% opacity, and just brush them back in a little bit. So they're diminished but not removed completely. Okay, make sure you're back on the actual layer, and we can deal with this. What you're hearing there is my pen on my tablet as I work. And yeah, so I think you get the idea. Really quick and easy. I've pretty much done this whole image to quite a high standard without losing any texture, except for the texture we didn't want, obviously. And there you go, you've got a fully skin retouched image. Obviously there are things you would do to this image from here to enhance it even more, maybe get rid of this drain pipe or whatever. But you can see we've got, this is our before and after of the face, complete before and after, and you can see we've still got texture in everything. I might refine that a little bit more with dodging burning and so forth, but before and after on the face, and on the arms, quite a big difference, and on the legs is where you're going to see the main difference. Before and after, before and after. And from here, once you've done this layer, you can go back to your other layer, get that wet brush, and just refine it even more, especially with kneecaps. They're one of my least favourite parts of the body. They always look so weird. And there you go, full before and after, especially on the legs, massive difference. Alright guys, I want to thank you for watching. My name is Jack Salzke from FadedFocus Photography. This video was for F-Stop Lounge at fstoplounge.com. Hope you learnt something. If you have any questions for me, please feel free to ask, and I'll be happy to answer those for you. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video.